The quantum transmitter hummed with an almost musical resonance as Commander Elowen Voss pressed her palm against the activation panel. Her eyes, pale blue like the skies of long-forgotten Earth, scanned the readouts one final time. Outside the viewport of Bastion Station, the unnatural distortion of spacetime signaled the approach of the Vrex Armada. 300 warships strong, each capable of sterilizing a planetary surface within hours. "All systems operational, Commander," reported Lieutenant Cadric Fane, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "The quantum entanglement matrix is stable. Our message will reach them." "It has to," Elowen whispered. "Humanity's entire legacy depends on it." The station shuddered as the first volley of Vrex plasma torpedoes impacted against the failing shields. Status alerts screamed across every monitor. The station's AI calmly announced they had 17 minutes until catastrophic structural failure. Elowen thought back to the discovery that had doomed them all. The ancient ruins on Proxima Centauri b, humanity's first extrasolar colony, had contained technological wonders beyond imagining. Among them, the quantum transmitter now before her and the secret that had made the Vrex cross half a galaxy to ensure humanity's extinction. "They're hailing us," announced Communications Officer Rona Deverell, her voice surprisingly steady, despite the circumstances. "They're demanding immediate surrender and the destruction of the transmitter." Elowen straightened her shoulders. "Ignore them." The station rocked again. 3 decks were reported lost, casualties mounting. "Begin transmission," Elowen ordered. Cadric nodded grimly. "Initiating quantum data stream. Encoding complete historical archive." "Let me speak directly," Elowen said, stepping forward. A red light activated above the transmitter's camera lens. Elowen looked directly into it, addressing not the Vrex but the one hope humanity had left. A distant civilization that might receive their message centuries after all humans had perished. "This is Commander Elowen Voss of Earth Alliance Bastion. Station. We are under attack by the Vrex hegemony. They seek to eliminate our species because of what we discovered, what we truly are. This transmission contains the complete history of humanity, from our earliest civilizations to our expansion among the stars. But more importantly, it contains the truth we uncovered in the Proxima ruins." Another explosion rocked the station. Emergency lighting bathed the command center in crimson. The ancient beings who built the Proxima facility were not aliens as we initially believed. They were humans, our ancestors, from a civilization that rose and fell millions of years before our recorded history. The genetic evidence is irrefutable, the technological achievements documented in their archives, staggering. Humanity is not just a young species stumbling into the galactic community. Elowen's voice grew stronger as the station crumbled around her. "We are the second emergence of an ancient, powerful civilization. The Vrex know this. They remember what humanity was capable of in its first incarnation. They fear what we might become again. That's why they've come to destroy us while we're still vulnerable." Warning klaxons blared. The AI announced hull breach on multiple levels. "To whoever receives this, remember us. Learn from our knowledge, and understand that the potential within you may be greater than you ever imagined." The transmission indicator flashed green. Their message was away, propagating through quantum entanglement to receivers scattered across the galaxy. As the command center doors burst inward and the first Vrex soldiers appeared, Elowen smiled. The truth was out there now. Humanity's legacy would endure, even if humanity itself did not. Lieutenant Cadric activated the station's self-destruct sequence with a defiant smile on his face. "For the second emergence," he whispered. 500 years later, the quantum signal pulsed through an ancient receiver buried beneath the volcanic soil of Keelar Prime. Archaeologist Novus Artem brushed dust from his weathered face as the forgotten machine hummed to life for the first time in centuries. His eyes widened behind protective goggles as holographic symbols, unmistakably human in origin, danced above the excavation site. "Professor," called his assistant Merida Shal, scrambling down the rocky slope. "You need to see this." The Keelari natives, Six-limbed beings with iridescent skin and compound eyes had never encountered humans. Their civilization had arisen in isolation, developing a rich culture centered around harmony with their harsh volcanic environment. They had no space travel, no quantum theory, yet somehow, buried beneath their oldest temple complex, was undeniably human technology. "It's responding to the activation sequence," Novus said in disbelief, his translator automatically converting his words into the clicking language of the Kilari. Just as described in the ancient texts, Merita's compound eyes reflected the shimmering hologram. But how did human technology get here? The historical records show humans never ventured to this sector before their extinction. "That's what we've always believed," Novus replied quietly. The hologram stabilized, forming the face of a human female with pale blue eyes. The image spoke, the audio crackling with age but still intelligible. "This is Commander Elowen Voss of Earth Alliance Bastion Station." Novus and Merita listened in stunned silence as the message played. Around them, Kilari elders gathered, their normally rhythmic movements stilled by the gravity of the moment. When the transmission ended, Elder Clithva stepped forward, multiple limbs raised in the gesture of profound revelation. "The Skyward Ones," the elder clicked solemnly. "Our oldest legends speak of them, beings who came from beyond the fire clouds and taught our ancestors the secrets of metallurgy and agriculture, before departing with a promise to return." Novus stared at the now silent transmitter. "Not aliens visiting your world, Elder. Humans. My ancestors." "Impossible," Merita objected. "The timelines don't align. Human spaceflight only began 3,000 standard years ago. Kilari civilization dates back 30,000 years. Unless," Novus whispered, Commander Voss was telling the truth. "Unless there was a first human civilization, millions of years old, that reached the stars long before the second emergence of humanity." The implications staggered him. If humans had visited Keeler Prime in their first incarnation, what other worlds had they touched? What other civilizations had they influenced? "The Vrex destroyed humanity to prevent their resurgence," Merita said, her voice hushed. "But what if the commander's transmission reached other worlds, other species?" Elder Clithva produced an ancient artifact from within ceremonial robes, a small device of unfamiliar design. "This has been passed down through generations of elders. We never understood its purpose." Novus took the device with trembling hands. It was unmistakably a quantum key, identical to specifications included in Voss's transmission data package. A key to something hidden here, he realized. Something the first humans left behind. The ground beneath them trembled, not from volcanic activity, but from machinery awakening deep underground. A section of temple floor slid aside, revealing a descending stairway illuminated by lights automatically activating after millennia of dormancy. Elder Clithva's voice took on a reverent tone. "The Chamber of Ascension. No one has entered it since the time of the Skyward Ones." "Not the Skyward Ones," Novus corrected gently. "Humans. My people." Merita placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "Your extinct people." Novus looked at the stairway, then at the gathered Kilari, perhaps not as extinct as the Vrex intended. As they descended into the ancient chamber, Novus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being guided by unseen hands reaching across time itself. Humanity's first emergence had hidden something here, something meant to ensure their legacy would continue, even after the second emergence had been extinguished. The chamber hummed with latent energy as Novus, Merita, and 3 Kilari elders descended the final staircase. Light panels activated along curved walls, revealing a circular room dominated by a central pillar of what appeared to be liquid metal, constantly shifting and reforming. "Molecular fabrication technology," Novus breathed, recognizing it from the transmission data. "Still operational after all this time." "What is this place?" Elder Clithva asked, all 6 limbs trembling slightly in the presence of such ancient power. Before Novus could answer, the liquid metal pillar rippled and formed a humanoid shape. It solidified into the image of a woman with features similar, to Commander Voss, yet distinctly different. "Greetings," the figure said in perfect Kilari, then switched to the archaeologist's language. "I am Custodian Rhiannon Navarre, Knowledge Keeper of Project Renaissance. Identity verification protocol initiated." A beam of light scanned Novus from head to toe. "Genetic verification complete. Human genome detected. Initiating awakening protocol. Merita." Clicked nervously. "What awakening protocol?" The walls of the chamber transformed into viewing screens showing images of planets, star systems, and what appeared to be massive structures hidden in asteroid belts and planetary rings across the galaxy. Project Renaissance was humanity's contingency plan, Rhiannon explained. When the first human civilization detected the approaching extinction event, we seeded 57 worlds with regeneration vaults. Each contains genetic material, cultural, archives, and technological blueprints necessary to rebuild human civilization. "The first humans knew they were going to be wiped out?" Novus asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We miscalculated. We believed the gamma ray burst would destroy only our core systems. We didn't anticipate total extinction." The hologram's voice carried something like regret. "By the time we realized the full extent of the danger, we could only implement Renaissance and hope that eventually humanity would re-evolve on Earth." Elder Clithva stepped forward. "The Skyward Ones chose our world as a guardian site?" "Yes. Your ancestors promised to protect this facility until humanity returned." Rhiannon turned to Novus. "We calculated a 72% probability that humanity would achieve spaceflight again within 5 million years. When you did, we expected you would find these facilities and reclaim your legacy." "But we didn't," Novus said grimly. "The Vrex found out. Somehow, they hunted humanity to extinction before we could discover the truth." "Not extinction," Rhiannon corrected. "The Renaissance protocol includes multiple redundancies. Commander Voss's transmission has triggered emergency activation sequences in all remaining facilities." The central pillar shifted again, revealing a hidden chamber containing thousands of thumbnail-sized crystalline structures. "Human embryos," Rhiannon explained. "Genetically modified to reach maturity within accelerated growth chambers. Combined with the cultural and technological data preserved here, a new human civilization can emerge." Novus stared at the tiny crystals, each containing the potential for human life. "You're suggesting we restart humanity here on Kilar Prime?" "This facility is not designed for full species restoration," Rhiannon clarified. "It contains only 1,000 viable embryos, a genetic lifeline. But combined with the other facilities being activated across the galaxy, humanity can be reborn." Merida chittered anxiously. "The Vrex still exist. They dominate half the galaxy. If they learn humans are returning—" "The Vrex acted out of fear," Elder Clithva interrupted. "Fear of what humans might become. Perhaps it is time they faced that fear." The hologram nodded. "Project Renaissance includes defensive technologies that were being developed when the first human civilization fell. Specifications for these weapons are included in the data package." Novus felt the weight of history pressing down on him. "You're talking about war, restarting humanity specifically to fight the Vrex." "I am talking about survival," Rhiannon corrected. "The choice of how humanity's third emergence develops is yours to make. But first, humanity must exist again." The chamber trembled as ancient machinery activated deeper below. Status indicators appeared on the walls showing similar facilities awakening on distant worlds. "The Renaissance begins now," Rhiannon announced. "Will you guide it, last archaeologist of humanity?" The Vrex High Command vessel, inevitable dominance, hung in orbit above the conquered world of Terras III, its hull gleaming with the metallic, purple sheen characteristic of Vrex architecture. In the ship's strategic chamber, Admiral Zhelvorsk studied the holographic display with growing concern. "Another one," he hissed through needle-like teeth. "That's the 7th quantum signature, detected this cycle." His second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Nexra, scrolled through the data analysis. "The pattern matches ancient human technology, confirmed with 98.7% certainty. Admiral Vorsk's membranous ear flaps flattened against his elongated skull, a sign of extreme agitation among the Vreks. Impossible. We eliminated every human settlement, every outpost, every ship. 5 centuries of thorough extermination. Yet these signals persist, Nexra observed, and they're spreading. The holographic display updated, showing new energy signatures, appearing across systems far beyond Vrex-controlled space. Systems inhabited by species who had never encountered humans, at least not humans of the second emergence. The historical archives speak of this. An elder Vrex scientist named Kelvor said from the shadows of the chamber. The precursor directive warned that humanity might return, that their first civilization had prepared contingencies we could not comprehend. Admiral Vorsk turned his compound eyes toward the scientist. Those are ancient superstitions. The humans we exterminated were primitive by our standards, barely 5,000 years into their space age. And yet, Kelvor replied calmly, our ancestors feared them enough to preserve warnings across 50 generations. On the command deck below, a junior officer approached with obvious trepidation. Admiral, we've intercepted a transmission from Keeler Prime. It contains impossibilities. Within hours, the strategic chamber had become a crisis center. The intercepted transmission played again on the main display. A Keelari archaeologist named Merita Shal, broadcasting to nearby systems. To all sentient beings who value freedom, the Vrex hegemony has hidden the truth for centuries. Humanity, the species they eradicated, was not just another civilization. They were the descendants of the forerunners who seeded many of our worlds with technology, knowledge, and in some cases, the foundations of life itself. The Vrex feared humanity's potential to reclaim their ancient power, so they committed genocide. But humanity had a contingency plan. They are returning, and they offer alliance to all who would stand against Vrex domination. This transmission includes technical specifications for defensive shields capable of withstanding Vrex bombardment. This is just the beginning. The recording ended, leaving a heavy silence in the strategic chamber. Treason, Admiral Vorsk finally snarled. Prepare a battle group to sterilize Keeler Prime immediately. It's too late, Kelvor said quietly. Analysis shows this transmission has reached 27 systems already. The encryption technology is sophisticated. We cannot block it. Then we crush each world that receives it. Vorsk slammed a clawed hand against the tactical display. Nexra's voice remained steady. Admiral, we lack sufficient forces to simultaneously subdue that many worlds, especially if they now possess enhanced shield technology. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vorsk felt a sensation alien to Vrex psychology. Doubt. The Vrex hegemony had maintained dominance through superior firepower and the unity of singular purpose. If these human seeds were providing advanced technology to subjugated worlds, there's more, Kelvor added, his voice dropping even lower. Analysis of the transmission indicates the shield specifications are merely preliminary offerings. The data suggests humans possess weapons technology capable of targeting specific Vrex biological vulnerabilities. Impossible, Vorsk hissed. Our genetic structure has been a closely guarded secret for millennia. Perhaps not from the first human civilization, Kelvor replied. The transmission references historical data suggesting humans and Vrex encountered each other millions of years ago, during humanity's first emergence. On a dozen worlds throughout the galaxy, ancient facilities hummed to life. Growth chambers, activated, nurturing the embryonic beginnings of humanity's third emergence. But more importantly, the knowledge and technology of the first human civilization began flowing outward to oppressed species across the galaxy. The seeds of rebellion had been planted, and the Vrex, for all their military might, found themselves facing an enemy they had already killed, yet somehow couldn't destroy. 20 years passed like a heartbeat in galactic terms. On Keeler Prime, the volcanic plains that once housed only temple complexes now supported a sprawling research city. At its center stood the Renaissance Spire, a structure combining Kilari organic architecture with human engineering principles. Within its highest chamber, Acting Commander Lyra stood at the viewport, her human features marking her as one of the first of the third emergence. Though only 19 biological years old, accelerated education and neural imprinting had equipped her with knowledge spanning millennia. The Vrex fleet has been detected crossing the Harlan Expanse, reported Kellen, her chief strategist and fellow third emergence human. 87 capital ships. They'll reach Keeler Prime in 3 standard days. Lyra nodded, her expression calm despite the gravity of the news. And our coalition forces? Representatives from 23 species have contributed ships, personnel, or technology. Kellen activated a holographic display showing the assembled fleet gathering near Keeler's outer moon. We're still outnumbered, but the integration of first emergence defensive systems gives us fighting chance. It was never about winning through military might, Lyra reminded him. Operation Echo just needs to succeed. The door slid open, admitting Elder Merita Shal. Now ancient by Kilari standards, her once iridescent exoskeleton faded to pale green. Beside her walked Novus Artem, the human archaeologist whose discovery had sparked the Renaissance. His hair had whitened, but his eyes remained sharp. The final transmission package is ready for distribution, Novus announced. Once the battle begins, quantum entanglement will carry it to every corner of the galaxy simultaneously. Merita's compound eyes reflected the starlight. Are you certain this is the only way? Many will die in this confrontation. The Vrex leave us no choice, Lyra replied softly. They've rejected every diplomatic overture. They've destroyed 3 worlds just for harboring human refugees. They cannot accept our existence. Because they remember, Nova said. Their ancestral memory preserves the truth about the first human civilization, a truth even we don't fully understand. Kellen's console chimed with an incoming transmission. Commander, we're receiving a request for communication from the Vrex flagship. The air in the chamber seemed to still. This was unprecedented. The Vrex never negotiated. Accept, Lyra ordered. The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Zhel Vorsk, visibly aged but no less imposing. Behind him stood a younger Vrex wearing the insignia of the scientific caste. Human abomination, Vorsk began without preamble. I offer you one opportunity to surrender. All third emergence humans will be taken into custody and transported to a containment world. The species who have harbored you will face sanctions but may be spared extermination. Lyra stepped forward. Admiral Vorsk, we both know that's not possible. The Renaissance can't be stopped now. 17 facilities have already activated. Even if you destroy Keeler Prime completely, humanity's return is inevitable. Nothing is inevitable, Vorsk hissed. Except, perhaps the cycle, Lyra replied. The younger Vrex scientist moved closer to the transmission pickup. What cycle do you reference? The one documented in the complete Renaissance archives, Lyra explained. Humanity rises, achieves interstellar civilization, encounters the Vrex. Conflict ensues. Humanity falls. Then humanity rises again, and the cycle repeats. Lies. Vorsk snapped. The archives suggest this is the third cycle, not the second. Lyra continued calmly. That both our species have risen and fallen multiple times over millions of years. We're trapped in a pattern of mutual destruction. The scientist's compound eyes widened slightly. You claim this happened before the gamma ray burst that ended the first human civilization? I claim that perhaps it wasn't a gamma ray burst at all. Lyra activated a secondary display showing ancient star charts. Perhaps it was the aftermath of a war between our species that nearly destroyed us both. Deactivate transmission, Vorsk ordered sharply. But before the connection cut, the young scientist spoke quickly. The precursor directive speaks of a convergence point. The hologram vanished, leaving Lyra and her companions staring at empty space. What's a convergence point? Kellen asked. Novus stepped forward, his expression grave. Something I found in the deepest encrypted archives. A theoretical moment when both species might break the cycle, choosing cooperation over destruction. And you think that moment is now? Merida asked. I think, Lyra said, looking out at the stars, that we're about to find out. The space above Keelar Prime blazed with weapons fire. The Coalition fleet, a hodgepodge assembly of vessels from 24 different species, moved in perfect coordination against the more numerous but increasingly fragmented Vrex forces. Aboard the command ship Renaissance, Lyra watched the tactical display with grim determination. Their losses were significant, but the strategy was working. The Vrex fleet was being herded toward the precise coordinates needed for Operation Echo. Coalition vessels Dauntless and Kethri's Resolve have been destroyed, reported Kellen from the tactical station. Vrex losses at 67% and climbing. They're fighting with unusual desperation, observed Novus, who stood as civilian advisor on the bridge. Even for Vrex? Lyra nodded. Because somewhere in their genetic memory they know what's coming. The bridge doors slid open, admitting a Vrex in scientific cast robes, the same young scientist from Admiral Vorsk's transmission. Now he wore restraints and was flanked by security officers. "Commander," the lead officer said, "the prisoner has requested to speak with you. He surrendered to our forces voluntarily." Lyra approached the Virex cautiously. "Your name?" "I am Thelev, grandson descendant of Elder Kelvor," the Virex replied. "And I have accessed the sealed portions of the precursor directive." Lyra signaled the guards to give them space. "Tell me about the convergence point." Thelev's compound eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. "The cycle has repeated not twice but 17 times over the past 30 million years. Each time both our species rise, achieve interstellar capability, meet, war, and nearly annihilate each other. Each time survivors of both species leave behind warnings and fail-safes for their future descendants." 17 cycles? Novus whispered in horror. "The Vrex fear humanity because we remember fragments of past cycles. Humans are more adaptable, more capable of radical innovation. Each cycle, humans develop weapons that target Vrex vulnerabilities with increasing efficiency. And each cycle, the Vrex strike preemptively to prevent that development," Lyra concluded. "We're trapped in an evolutionary arms race across geological time." The leaves' membranous ear flaps vibrated, a sign of agreement. "The precursor directive speaks of a convergence point when both species might recognize the cycle and choose differently. My grandfather believed this moment approaches." "Why should we trust you?" Kellen demanded. "Your people have tried to exterminate humanity. Twice now." "Because extinction threatens us both," Thelev replied simply. "Analysis of archaeological evidence shows that after each cycle, both species emerge weaker. Genetic diversity diminishes. Technological recovery takes longer. The 17th cycle may be the last possible iteration before one or both species face permanent extinction." A massive explosion rocked the ship. The tactical display showed Admiral Vorsk's flagship launching a suicidal attack against Renaissance's command section. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, reported the damage control officer. "Admiral Vorsk has boarded with strike teams." Lyra turned to Novus. "Initiate Operation Echo, now." Novus moved to the quantum communications array and entered his authorization code. "Echo initiating. Quantum package transmitting to all Renaissance facilities." Throughout the ship, alarm klaxons screamed as Vrex boarding parties fought their way toward the bridge. Lyra could hear weapons fire in adjacent corridors. "What is Operation Echo?" Thelev asked urgently. "The complete truth," Lyra answered. "Every Renaissance facility is now broadcasting the unredacted archives of all previous cycles, to every world, Vrex and Coalition alike. No more secrets, no more fragmented memories. The full history of our mutual destruction, available to all." The bridge doors buckled under heavy impact. Security teams took defensive positions. "It won't be enough," Thelev warned. "Vorsk will destroy this ship and the cycle will continue." "Echo was just phase 1, Lyra replied calmly, entering commands into her personal console. "The convergence point requires more." She pressed her palm to the biometric scanner, initiating a sequence that caused the ship's quantum core to pulse with blinding energy. The tactical display transformed, showing a massively complex mathematical model expanding outward from their position. By the first emergence, Novus breathed, you're activating the Harmony Protocol. The doors burst inward. Admiral Vorsk himself stood framed in the opening, his combat exoskeleton scorched from battle, his weapon aimed directly at Lyra. Stop this transmission immediately, he commanded. It's already done, Lyra replied, stepping forward unarmed. Look at your neural implant, Admiral. The data is flowing directly to every Vrex connected to your military network. Vorsk faltered, his compound eyes shifting as information suddenly flooded his consciousness, the complete, unaltered history of 17 cycles of conflict and near extinction. This changes nothing, he snarled, though with less conviction. Humans will always threaten Vrex existence. Not if we change together, Lyra said softly. The Harmony Protocol isn't a weapon, Admiral. It's an invitation. The quantum cores pulsing reached a crescendo. Around them, reality itself seemed to waver. What have you done? Vorsk demanded, his weapon lowering slightly. Thaliv stepped forward. She's initiated neural synchronization, the convergence technology mentioned in our most ancient texts, the technology both our species developed together before the first cycle of destruction. Together? Vorsk's confusion was evident. The first civilization wasn't human or Vrex, Novus explained, understanding dawning on his aged face. It was both, a unified species that split evolutionarily after the First Great War. The quantum field expanded, encompassing all vessels in the battle zone. Across the Coalition and Vrex fleets, beings found themselves experiencing flashes of shared consciousness, the deep ancestral memory of a time before the cycle began. We were one species, Lyra said quietly. The archives call us the Unified. We achieved wonders together that neither of our separate species has managed since. Admiral Vorsk staggered as ancestral memories flooded his consciousness. Memories not of war with humans, but of collaboration and shared achievement. Memories of a civilization that had touched the very fabric of reality before fragmenting into conflict. The cycle ends when we remember who we were, Lyra continued, and who we could be again. Throughout the fleet, weapons fell silent. The neural synchronization was temporary, but its impact would be permanent. The shared ancestral memory now accessible to both species. Vorsk lowered his weapon completely. This changes everything. No, Lyra corrected gently. It remembers everything. The choice to change is still ours to make. As the quantum field stabilized, Lyra extended her hand toward the Vrex Admiral, a gesture drawn from the newly accessible shared memories of their unified ancestors. 17 cycles of destruction, she said. Perhaps the 18th cycle can be one of rebuilding. After a moment of hesitation, Admiral Vorsk reached out his clawed hand and clasped Lyra's in the ancient gesture of their shared ancestors, the gesture that had once symbolized the founding of the unified civilization. Perhaps, he agreed reluctantly, it can. Around them, human and Vrex alike experienced the rush of remembrance, not just of conflict, but of the greater civilization they had once built together. The genetic memory that had driven them to fear and destroy each other now offered a different path. Humanity's legacy among the stars had never been about domination or survival alone. It had always been about the potential for something greater. A potential only now rediscovered after 30 million years of tragic repetition. The cycle had not ended, but for the first time in 17 iterations, it had changed direction. And, in the vast tapestry of galactic history, that single change made all the difference.